Good evening, everybody. Today is the 28th of January, which means it is my 2-year anniversary of being here on YouTube as an ex-Scientologist. And I don't really have an update for today. I just wanted to come on here and share and celebrate with you guys. And I'm hoping this video will turn out to be a bit of a Q&A. So this is your opportunity to ask me questions. I don't really do laid back streams like this very often. I normally come on here with a story or a point. I say my piece and I do Q&A at the end and then wrap up usually around half an hour or so. Whereas today, I was thinking we can chill out a little bit more and we can just sit and chat and answer your questions and talk about what it's been like over the last 2 years as an activist and my journey from being an ex-Scientologist to being an activist and yeah, have a little chat with you guys. So hello and welcome. Firstly, to say hi to some of you in the chat. Bear's mum, congratulations. Thanks for all your hard work. Well, thank you very much. SP Crusader is in the house. Leanie says, congratulations, Alex. Wow, you've done so much work in that time. Well done. Yeah, it's a weird one. It feels like yesterday that I started my channel. It doesn't feel like 2 years. It feels like maybe a year. So it's gone by quickly, and yeah, a lot has happened in the last 2 years, and there's been definitely a journey there. When I started my channel, I didn't think I would end up organizing a protest, let alone doing what I'm doing now. I wanted to create a channel to share my experience and talk about what happened to me in Scientology, and to give other people a platform to do the same thing. There was definitely a real lack of UK voices on YouTube at the time. Obviously, John Atack is somebody who has been speaking out for a long time here in the UK. He's had a channel for many years. And there were definitely activists before me, but when I started my channel, there was a very limited number of people on YouTube. There was Aaron Smith-Levin growing up in Scientology. There was Mark and Claire Headley on Blown for Good. Doug Kramer on Dazed But Not Confused. There was Chris Shelton, obviously. There was a limited number, Mike Rinder, of people creating content regularly about their experiences in Scientology. And I thought that as somebody who is going through recovery myself, it would have really helped to hear some voices from people here in the UK about what they went through. And I thought that just by starting a channel and sharing my experiences as a Class 5 staff member, someone who worked at a local city level church, rather than in the Sea Org or international management or anything like that, which was predominantly the voices on YouTube at the time, I thought that that might be able to help somebody who is going through a similar thing. And I just thought by sharing my story that I might be able to help at least one person. And then I thought, actually, this is an opportunity to share other people's stories, people who may not want to start a YouTube channel or be an activist, but just want to get their story off their plate and get it out there. So I started the channel with a mission to create a space for people to share their stories. And as time went on, I just felt more and more empowered to become more of an activist, to start actually doing stuff in the field of stopping Scientology's abusive practices, rather than just talking about my experiences and sharing other people's. So that started the ball rolling. January 28th is when I started my channel in 2023. And here we are in January 2025. And I organized a protest when that IES thing happened. It was the first IES event in a couple of years. And I thought, well, of course I'm going to protest. It wasn't even a question in my mind. And that became the largest protest in the UK for about 15 years since the Anonymous movement. And using my skills in marketing, I thought, let's contact some media, some journalists, and see if we can get some press attention. It was covered by The Independent, The Guardian, and so on at the time. And then that's when I really switched from being just an ex-Scientologist talking about experiences on YouTube to being an activist, I think, in my mind. And from that point, I just became a lot more focused on, okay, what am I trying to do here? What am I trying to achieve? Why are we all here? Why am I here? What do I want to get out of it? And I don't really have a master plan. I've just been following my gut instinct and doing what I think is right. And yeah, we hit 1 million views on my channel last year. That was a pretty big milestone. And I've continued to try and get press for stuff going on. There was an investigation into Narconon, Scientology's drug rehab center, that was in the Guardian, that I helped with at the very beginning of that stage. Then the journalist went off and did her investigation, and it was a huge expose. And then we had the issues of the East Grinstead Town Council that are still ongoing. Obviously, we organised another protest at the IES event last year, and yeah, I'm just kind of going with the flow, I suppose, and feel like I've got this opportunity here. I've got this platform to speak to people, to get my story out there, but also to give other people that opportunity, because Scientology takes so many voices away from people. It's important to give a voice back to some of those people. And so that very much is still the mission of the channel. But I think it's a lot more focused now with what can I do as an activist to actually affect change. And that's kind of where we're at now, is meeting with members of parliament, with journalists, with, law enforcement and so on, to see what can be done. And I think the power of collaboration is really, really important. So I've been doing my best to work with other people here in the UK to try and make the changes that we want to see happen. I can't alone organize I mean, I can organize a protest, but like, it wouldn't be much of a protest. It was just me there. There are dozens of people who attend these protests, and hundreds of you that watch my live streams and participate online and share the message on social media. So I definitely can't do it alone, but it's like, how do we work together to get where we want to get to? And everyone has their own reasons for speaking out or being a part of this community, and everyone wants to get something different out of it, and that's absolutely fine. So I see my role as more, okay, this is what I'm gonna do, and if people want to support me in that, great. If they don't, that's also fine. It's not going to stop me from speaking out and doing what I think is right, which is trying to actively campaign to stop the abusive practices in Scientology. I've made it very, very clear that I'm not in this to try and shut down Scientology or stop parishioners from believing in the tech. If they want to do that, they have a right to choose that, and they have a right to believe in what they want to, and I will defend that the same way I'll defend anyone else's right to believe in what they want and do what they want. But what I'm trying to do is separate the belief from the behavior, and saying, look, you can't lock people in rooms, you can't put people on hard manual labor, you can't force people to have abortions, and all of the other abusive practices that Scientology engages in. And that's really my mission at the moment. Now, the bigger question is whether you can have the belief without the behavior. My personal belief is that the behaviors that we were just talking about are inherently a part of Scientology. You cannot be a Scientologist without inadvertently abusing and harming people. That's my belief. But in terms of engaging with law enforcement, engaging with politicians and so on, that's a big ask to go to those people who have no idea what Scientology is, other than the crazy alien stories and Tom Cruise and all of that, to go to them and say, hey, would you consider banning Scientology? That's been a lot harder to have that sort of conversation, I found. Whereas if you go to them and say, hey, look, I'm not asking you to outright ban someone's belief system that you know very little about. I'm just asking you to look at the behaviors that they are engaging in, and do you agree that it is wrong to XYZ, harass members of the public and critics and former members, force families to have disconnection, raise kids and put them through ethics cycles, which is inherently harmful, and so on. If you look at the behaviors, I found that conversation to be a lot more fruitful, because people can look at those two things separately, and they are more likely and more willing to make a judgment on a behavior. And then later down the line, maybe we'll start to build this picture that shows that Scientology is continuing to engage in this abusive behavior, regardless of what the law says. And then the question becomes, okay, well, is this organization's belief system inherently harmful? I believe it is. But that's a question for later down the line when it comes to the activism I'm doing with journalists and with politicians and so on. But anyway, that was a very long way of explaining that I'm definitely still very much at the start of this journey. 2 years in, it's gone by like in a flash, and I'm hoping that I'll be here for another 2 years. For me, it's never really about the numbers or the views or the money. Just to give you guys a little idea of how little YouTube pays, the last 3 months, I've earned about $150 a month in ad revenue each month. It's not a money maker. I'm not doing this for the money. Any money that I do make from this channel, whether it be through buy me a coffee or through ad revenue on YouTube, it all goes back into the activism. And if you think about it, if I spend an hour on a live stream, minimum wage in the UK is something like 12 or 13 pounds an hour, I think. And a video on average makes about £5 in ad revenue. Yes, there are coffee donations on top of that, but it's not like I'm literally earning less than minimum wage for doing this. I would earn more money working, which is what I do. I have a job, a full-time job, and I work in that pretty much every day. So what I try and do here is just use this as an outlet to be an activist, and any money I make from it goes back into it, goes into meeting with politicians, it goes into things like the StreamYard subscription, which you'll see sometimes I have the pro one, sometimes I don't. There's a no logo in the corner at the moment, which means I paid for it this month. That's usually because somebody has donated enough money for me to be able to pay for the premium subscription. So it's definitely something that costs money rather than makes money, but that's absolutely fine. I'm not doing this as a business. I'm doing this as something that I feel is right to do. Anyway, let's have a look at some of your comments and questions. Anna Reese says, congrats, Alex. Thank you, Anna. SP Crusader Lini says, question, who brought the cake? Cake Gate. That was one of my highlights of the last 2 years, I must say. Also, my mum's in the house. Hi, mum. Thanks for joining. Everybody say hello to my mum in the chat. Yeah, who brought the cake? Cake Gate. That was so funny. For those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, we protested outside London Org on March 13th last year, which is L. Ron Hubbard's birthday. And I brought a cake that I brought to the church, and I went inside to present the cake to the receptionist and said, hey, it's L. Ron Hubbard's birthday, so we brought him a cake. And they proceeded to chuck it on the floor outside the door of the building. And then Charlie, my former senior, stood on the cake. And it became this whole thing. So yeah, there is no cake today, unfortunately. But hey ho, that's fine. I've got Jaffa cakes instead, which are arguably better than birthday cake. Lisa Terry, hi Alex, hi all, happy birthday. Thank you. Well, happy YouTube birthday, I suppose. My birthday is actually in April, and it'll be my 30th birthday in April. Gosh, let's not talk about that too much. L. Ron Hubbard is here. 2 years of misery for me. Oh, fantastic as always. CO Bill, congrats, Alex. You've been really effective. Thank you. I am Shailene. Congrats, Alex. Thank you. Shai Corley here. So Shai Corley is one of these amazing people that really supports me behind the scenes in ways that people don't even realize. And there is a lot of confidentiality that goes on in this world. There's a lot of stuff that I'm doing that I don't share on my channel. There's a lot of stuff that that people are helping me with that it's not right to publicize what is going on, because you know, I want to protect them, especially when I'm under the microscope at the moment with Scientology constantly harassing me. 4,000 tweets over the last 3 months attacking me online, and numerous articles on Stand League and Freedom Magazine, all that sort of stuff. So in order to protect other people, I try not to disclose too much. If you donate coffee money through Buy Me a Coffee, I don't do shout outs on my channel, because Scientology keep a list of every single person that has donated, that puts their name on it, and it gets added into a file, and you can be sure that one day they will go through that file and see what they can dig up on every single person. They have already come after some of the people who have supported me on Buy Me a Coffee on Twitter and created tweets showing that they've looked into some of these people that have donated money. In terms of real world threats, that's not too much. They're not going to knock on your door and find out where you live unless you're considered a big threat to Scientology. But it just goes to show the scrutiny that I'm under as an activist. So I do my best to try and protect people. If you put your name when you donate coffee money, it goes on the coffee website and your name is there, and I thank you personally. I send a message and an email if you donate through PayPal, for example, as well. So all of that does happen, but I don't necessarily shout out on my channel because it just limits the exposure that people get, and I don't feel like people deserve being harassed by Scientology as a result of supporting what I'm doing. But anyway, that was just to say, Shai Corley is one of those people that helps me a lot behind the scenes, and thank you, Shai. May K London, you do such a great job. Hi from across the pond. Thank you so much. SP Crusader Leany, comment, you got me out of the woodwork, Alex. Forever grateful. Well, that's the thing. I think one of the most wonderful things, excuse me, one of the most wonderful things about being an activist is seeing other people's journeys. For example, Leany contacted me a while ago and said, hey, I'd like to come along to a protest, but not quite sure I'm ready for it. And she came along to the CCHR protest, and you could see she was trying to kind of coming out of her shell, and, you know, wasn't quite sure where she was at, how she wanted to behave and what she wanted to say and so on. And over time, I think Leany has become a lot more confident and is much more happy to stand alongside us and chant things and stand there with a sign and so on at the IS protest. And it's been wonderful to see people's own journeys progress as as it's kind of been spurred on by something that started in the community on my channel. So thank you, Leany, and I'm glad that you have come out of your shell. It's really nice to have people a part of the team, and I certainly couldn't do this without you. Lisa Terry, question: did you expect to attract so many Neverins to your channel? I'm one, and I love watching you and reading the chats. Thank you. And to be honest, the answer is yes, right? If you think about it, there are far more ex-Scientologists and even more non-Scientologists than there are Scientologists. So Scientology is a very small, dying cult, and there are not many people left in Scientology, particularly here in the UK. There are more ex-Scientologists than there are current Scientologists, but even that number is substantially smaller than the greater population at large. So the goal was initially to very much reach people currently in Scientology, but my channel has since evolved, and I think now I'm trying to very much target people who have never been in Scientology, because I'm trying to change the narrative. Right, people in the UK, when I approach conversations about Scientology, people in the UK think, oh, Scientology, isn't that just that crazy American cult that believes in space aliens and Tom Cruise is a part of it? And I go, yeah, that is true, but people don't realize that it is a harmful, abusive organization that is engaging in harassment against anybody that speaks out against it, and doing some really horrible things that the majority of people in Scientology had no choice about. People who grew up in Scientology, who are second generation, third generation, in some cases fourth generation, they had no choice. They don't know anything different, and Scientology is continuing to force its practices on its parishioners, even the ones who don't want to be there. And so that is the narrative shift that I'm trying to create with my activism, or as part of the activism, is to try and educate people on what this organization actually does, and try and change that perception from being a crazy American cult to being an abusive organization, because that's what it is. And the only way we're going to do that is by sharing people's stories and talking about people's experiences. So, very long-winded answer to your question, Lisa. Did you expect to attract so many Neverins? Yes, to be honest, simply because there are more Neverins than there are ex-Scientologists. But I'm glad you're here, and also we need to collaborate together with people never in Scientology. If every single ex-Scientologist in the world got together in a room, we probably wouldn't fill up Wembley Stadium. We might fill up the O2 or Wembley Arena, but we certainly wouldn't fill up, one of those big American football stadiums, for example. There just simply aren't that many of us. So we need the help of people who have never been in to help us seek justice and give a voice to those whose voices have been taken away. Book Buddy, question. Is there a specific football team you support? Tottenham myself. Tough year for me. No, I'm not a big football person. I much prefer extreme sports. I love snowboarding. I used to love skateboarding as a kid. So I'm much more of a board sports kind of guy than football. But I do work a lot of rugby matches as part of my job outside of YouTube. But I'm not really a big follower of it. Dawn Myers, happy birthday. Thank you for everything you do. Yes, well, as I said, YouTube birthday. My actual birthday is in April, but thank you. Champagne hand, happy YouTube anniversary. Thank you. Nasty Nathaniel is here. You can shout me out. I already have an OSA file made on me, so who cares? Yeah, 100%. And I got wind the other day that the I'm just reading some of these comments. I got wind the other day. So in Scientology at the London Org, there was a folder with people's pictures on them at the reception desk. I remember seeing this folder, and it's all the pictures of the SPs. And if any of these people show up at the reception desk, you are to immediately call the Director of Special Affairs, and he would come down and handle the situation. And so I knew it was only a matter of time before I was in this binder. I had it confirmed the other day that I am in this binder at London Org, so I made the book. I'm officially a suppressive person. SP Crusader Leany says, question, do you have any top tips, lessons learned, etc. for someone starting a YouTube channel? Yeah, Leany, look, let's chat. If you want to start a channel, I would be more than happy to help you. The key thing is there's a couple of key things, but one is consistency, and two is just sticking to it. It can feel very daunting, and you can feel like you have to put a video out every day, and then you become stressful, and then it's like, oh my god, I haven't put a video out. Just don't let yourself fall into that trap. If you are just getting started, I would advise sit down for an afternoon and just think of some ideas of videos that you could do, even if they're 10-15 minutes long, 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever, and just sit down for a couple of hours and record all of the videos, and then you can schedule them to go out every day for a week. But then you've done the work in a short period of time, and then you have content going out every single day, but you don't have to think about it every single day or come up with content, what's going to come next. So content planning is really important. And yeah, consistency. It is better to upload good quality content less regularly than it is to upload less quality content more regularly. If I was to come on this channel every day and babble about nonsense and have no updates and whatever, that's a different type of channel. For me as an activist, I'm not on YouTube because I want to be famous or I want to be a YouTuber. If I wanted to do that stuff, I would be having a channel that would be talking about my work outside of this, talking about celebrities and musicians and the live entertainment industry, and all these salacious stories and drama and all this stuff that goes on. Like, that's what produces clicks and views on YouTube, and it's very easy to create influencer type content. And then you could drop in YouTube's Scientology stuff every now and then, but that's not why I'm here. So for me, it's more important that I build a following, a good community of people who are willing to write to their member of parliament, or willing to, contact a local councillor, or stand there with us at a protest, or, share something on social media with their friends, because that is the activism I'm trying to encourage. And for me, that is quality versus creating content that's going to get loads of comments, but it doesn't actually forward the narrative in terms of getting the information out there that Scientology is engaging in abusive practices. So be consistent with your messaging, but also don't be afraid for your message to change. like I said, when I started on YouTube, I wanted to just talk about my experience and give other people a platform to do the same. Whereas now it's very much a platform to share news and build a community. So my message has changed, but I've been fairly consistent, I like to think, with sticking to that message, whatever it is at the time. You know, I very rarely comment on the SPTV drama and all of this that's going on. I don't attack other creators. I don't create content about what other people are creating content about, because that's not what my channel is here for. That doesn't mean that other people shouldn't do that, or other channels don't exist for that reason. Absolutely fine if they do. It's just not why I'm here. And so by sticking true to what my goal is and being consistent with that, I find it a lot more enjoyable to be on YouTube. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Leanie. But drop me a text and we'll talk about it. I can help you get set up with the channel for sure. CEO Bill's in the house. I can't believe they did that. I would have your cake and eat it too. You're such a joker. Jennifer says, congratulations on 2 years, Alex. Thank you. Evelyn Simon, I would love for your poster to be around. It's important. Okay, so slight update on the TFL poster thing. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Scientology ran an ad campaign on the London Underground with these big posters. In fact, let me just get it up because it's funny. Ad fixed. Here we go. So they ran this campaign and it's currently running. It's happening until the 9th of February on the Underground. And I, as a joke, posted a jokey version saying we should run an ad like this. Right, so this is the Scientology ad on the top, and this is the jokey one that I made on the bottom. The link, scientologyabuse.com, is a website that I own, and it's just a page with survivor stories on it, because Scientology takes away people's voice and their freedom to speak about what happened to them. So by giving them a platform to submit their own stories, and they'll be published unedited exactly as they are, in their own words, I thought that was a nice little thing. And so many of you have come back and said, I would donate to get that on the actual Underground. And, you know, how much would that cost as a campaign? So today I had a meeting with CFL to ask and got a quote. And we're looking at like £15,000 as a minimum spend for 3 ads at a major station like where Scientologies are at Tottenham Court Road. And that's a lot of money. If it was a couple of £1,000, then great, but it's £3,000 per ad. There's a minimum of 3 ads, and then there's printing costs on top of that, and tax, because obviously I'm not you know, I have to pay tax in the UK. I'm not a VAT registered business. I don't earn enough money to be able to be void of VAT as a registered business. So it's expensive. And look, if people in the chat reckon we can make £15,000, then I would totally do a fundraiser for it. But I'm in talks with various people for funding options. It's possible that we could get some of the money funded via another source, and then we could fundraise a little bit on the channel, maybe a couple of £1,000. That might be more doable. We could run, for example, a smaller campaign at a smaller station, or less. I think the minimum is 3 posters, but this is for the big billboards. So we could run smaller poster type billboards at a lesser visited station that would cost less. So that's the next conversation that I'm going to have with TFL, is kind of getting a few extra quotes. But if you think it's possible to raise a large amount of money like that simply for the purpose of getting back at Scientology and having a poster out there that shares the truth about the abuses in Scientology, I'd be down for it. I mean, the key thing is Scientology's ads promote people's stories in Scientology. So this link, scientology.org/stories, just goes to a page with a bunch of videos on it that are only a minute or 2 long, where people are just talking about how wonderful it is being a Scientologist. So the idea is we could do a campaign where this page goes to a similar thing like it does now, stories from people who have been abused by Scientology. Or maybe it could be a campaign for some support, some resources that are available, the Aftermath Foundation, something like that. The messaging is to be decided, but the key barrier at the moment is funding. So we'll see what we can do. But it was a fun idea, and I'm still pursuing it. That it's still possible that it will happen. Laura FM is here. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, Alex. Appreciate that too. We as survivors need to stick together and collaborate in any way that we can and work together. And you know, we're all in this together. We all have our own reasons for being activists in Scientology, and we all want to get different things out of our time on YouTube, and that's absolutely fine. There's no right or wrong way to be an activist. There's no right or wrong way to tackle the problem that is Scientology. We all bring our own things to the table, and I just think it's better when we are working together. And I love your support and appreciate it. Thank you so much, Laura. Rachel says, could the Aftermath Foundation help? Yeah, it's certainly a possibility. Obviously, I can't speak for them, but it's a conversation to be had for sure. Let's have a little look. Rary Bay says, I mean, you could make another channel for that. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. People come at me and say, oh, you're just trying to be famous or an influencer. It's like, no, if I wanted to do that, I would create a channel that was nothing about Scientology. And I have content for days. I'm a marketing person. I can always think of stuff to talk about. But look, that's not why I'm here. That's not the purpose of this channel. But yeah, it's just not, I don't want to be that sort of person. Let's have a look here. Valerie Morgan is here. Happy anniversary, Alex. I've loved your channel since the beginning. Thank you, Valerie, and you've been a great supporter of mine, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your engagement, for your coffee donations, for always being there to support me and the work that I'm trying to do. Rachel Harris, I really hate seeing all the crap that other creators on the SPTV space are constantly slinging at each other. Really just detracts from what's important. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a tricky one because we are all cult survivors. We are people who've lived in an environment where our free speech has been stifled, and we have for so long been told what we can and can't say, and we have been censored and our voices being taken away. And now we have this platform where anybody can create a channel and talk about whatever they want. It's like the complete opposite. It's free speech in the most beautiful way. But as a result of that, you know, there's always going to be disagreements. We are, at the end of the day, all different people. With different viewpoints, different outlooks on life, different interests. And we're all fighting Scientology for different reasons. Some people are fighting it out of anger or out of, you know, rage because of what happened to them. And that's absolutely fine. Other people are fighting because they have never been in Scientology, but they just want to support the cause because they recognize the abuse that happens, or they relate to some of the stories that ex-Scientologists have told. And all of that is absolutely fine. There is no right or wrong way to do this. And that's the beauty of free speech, that we can all come on here and say what we want. But yeah, that does create conflict sometimes, and it's difficult to navigate that. And yes, it would be great if everyone could just get along and we'd all be happy and cheery and whatever. But it's a very serious subject, and we don't all have to be best friends in order to be activists. And I think my response to that is that there's content, there's entertainment value. I think a lot of people tune in to this space because they like watching and hearing about what's going on in the drama. It's like reality TV, but in real time with real people, and who aren't earning millions of pounds from advertising deals and so on. But nonetheless, there is that entertainment factor, and that's important to consider. But that doesn't mean that that necessarily drives what people are doing or what they're saying or why they're on YouTube. But it is a factor that comes into play when people are talking about SPTV drama and stuff. And my message is just really simple, that, you know, we don't all have to get along. We don't all have to be friends. We don't have to be collaborating on everything, but we are stronger when we do unite together. And I like to think, at least, that if there was some big event happening in the UK where we were going to get loads of press exposure, maybe a documentary, and, you know, a law was going to be passed or something significant like that, I like to think that in that sort of event, people would put their differences aside and come and join the event and recognize that we're all there for the same purpose. I might be wrong, but I like to approach my activism with that viewpoint and say, hey, look, people will disagree on things, and that's absolutely fine. There isn't a correct way to protest. we all bring our own thing to this game. We're all cogs in the machine, and the spokes on the cogs all kind of join together in their own way, and together we create this machine that is calling out for the end of abuse in Scientology. So and people like some creators more than others, and that's fine. That's the beauty of this platform. So very long-winded way of answering your question, but yeah, ultimately it is a shame when people don't get along and there's lots of content about other people and what people are saying, all this, and it's not fun to be a part of that. It's not fun to watch, and ultimately I agree, it is somewhat of a distraction because people are talking about each other rather than talking about their experiences in Scientology or talking about the abuse that Scientology is engaging in. But that doesn't mean it's not valuable, and that doesn't mean it shouldn't be there, and it doesn't mean that people shouldn't have the right to say it. I think it's all about balance. And the key thing to remember is that you, as the viewer, are the one in control of that balance. If you find yourself watching, the majority of your time on YouTube is spent watching creators talking about other creators, and then you find yourself getting riled up about it, you're the only one with the power over that to change that. You are the one that can simply start watching something else, maybe not Scientology related, and you're the one in control of the balance of the content that you watch. And hey, you can create a YouTube channel too and put your own 2 cents in if you want to. So it's an empowering thing, I think, is what I'm trying to say. Let's have a little look. So Crumbly says, actually, those are teeth, not spokes. Yes, well done. Thank you. I'm just thinking out loud here. Evelyn Simon, yes, really appreciate all the work you've done so brilliantly. You have made it easier for us to warn others about what Scientology does. Thank you. One thing that I like to think is one of the things that I bring to the table is I think I'm quite good at explaining Scientology concepts to non-Scientologists in a way that makes sense. Now, obviously, everyone and anyone can do this. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it or I'm better than anybody else, but I think I've developed quite a good way of explaining techniques and principles to people like politicians, and in a way that they understand it being an abusive practice, in a way that resonates with them and entices them to want to do something about it. And I like to think that's what I bring to the table. You guys might disagree, but that's kind of where I want to get at, where I want to get to, is I want to be able to clearly and concisely convey a message about something related to Scientology, and as a result of that, get that person to understand at the very least why it's an important issue, and even better, if they want to do something about it, write to an MP or jump in and stand with us at a protest, or even just share something on social. If I can inspire someone to do something, like actually take an action, then I think I'm succeeding in my goal anyway. But thank you for your question, Evelyn. Let's have a little look. Champagne Hand, do any tube adjacent shops have ad space that would be more affordable as people enter the stations? Not really at Tottenham Court Road, because it is such a big high traffic station, but there are smaller stations that are near Scientology orgs that have less footfall that will be equally as effective. So it's all something I'm looking at, and I will get back to you guys soon on the whole ads thing. Rachel Harris says, I'm going snowboarding in Austria soon, and I think I'm going to take some time away from the internet whilst I'm away and just unplug for a bit. 100%. I fully support that. Taking a break from social media, from YouTube, from the internet is really important. We all live in a world where we sit here on our phones all day, every day, or in front of the computer screen or whatever, scrolling, doom scrolling. And I personally think it can be harmful to mental health. So it's important to check yourself. And when you find yourself getting riled up or angry or upset or whatever emotion it may be about someone's content, just take a step back and go, why do I feel so strongly about a video I'm watching about somebody who I've never met and who is a real person that lives on the other side of the world, that has a real mission, but why do I feel so strongly about it? And often you'll find it's because you want to do something to stop that person's suffering, or you want to get involved, or you want to be an activist, or whatever it may be. And then for me, that helps me sort of reset why I'm doing this. And I suddenly find myself stop scrolling and looking at stuff and thinking, actually, a more effective way of spending my time, instead of watching all this content or reading all these tweets or whatever it may be, I'm going to write an email to a member of parliament instead, because that's going to get somewhere, and make me feel a little bit better, because I'm then being productive with my time. But look, I can't tell you what to do. Everyone's got um, their own thing. Love it, Alex. I love you. So glad you're part of my social life. Thank you. And this thing to remember is, like, look, I don't know any of you, right? I know some of you. There are some people in the chat who I've met that come to protests, and there are some friends, and obviously my mum's in the chat. So there are people that I do know in real life, but we are real people with our own real lives outside of YouTube. We all have, most of us. I have a job, and real responsibilities and things to do, and a social life and so on. We're not just here for entertainment factor. I mean, at least I'm not anyway. Katura says it's empowering to see you stand up to your abusers and hopefully stop new people from joining. Yeah, exactly. And also try and reach people currently in Scientology with the message that there is help available, if you choose to leave. I'm not here to try and convince people to leave Scientology. People will need to make their own decision. They need to make their own mind up. But I do want to be here to support people who have made that decision and help them leave if they need help. But also wider implications of that, broadcasting to the world what this organization is doing and raising public awareness of how this organization operates. Craig, question. You've said many times you would stop your activism against Scientology if they stopped their abuses, but was all the abuse part of the teachings of LRH? Yeah, look, this is the question that we approached at the very beginning of this stream, is the question of, can you have the beliefs without the behaviors? I personally think that the abuse and the harm that Scientology does is innately a part of the belief system. I think it's built into the mechanisms that that are used in Scientology. I think it would be very hard to be a Scientologist without inadvertently abusing and harming people. But that's just my opinion. Whether L. Ron Hubbard knew that that's what he was doing in the beginning, I tend to think that he didn't. But later on down the line, when he started to see how he could control people, he then started to capitalize on that and exploit it later on in his life. But yeah, the whole mechanism is a coercive control structure. The way it works absolutely follows the BITE model: behavior, information, thought, and emotion control. Every aspect of someone's life in Scientology is controlled to some fashion. The extent to which it's controlled and the harshness with which ethics and such are applied to people's lives, well, that comes down to the organization as a whole. The concepts that Scientology are based upon are generally not, the idea that man is basically good, or the idea that we're all trying to do the right thing here. There's nothing harmful about that, but it is harmful when you start applying it to mean that, well, you are responsible for your own condition in life, and that means that you're a degraded being. If something happens to you and you can't be a victim, that's then where it starts to become harmful. So the conversation of whether Scientology can exist without being harmful is a big question. I personally don't believe that you can have Scientology without the harm, but that doesn't mean there's no point in trying to get legislators to try and stop them from behaving in a certain way. If that kind of answers your question. Let's have a look at some of these. Craig, have you thought about how you will stream a protest against Scientology in the future when they get streams with Scientologists in taken down within hours? They don't get taken down within hours. They get reported within hours. And then YouTube takes a couple of days to review them. And then sometimes they remove the stream and sometimes they don't. I've had over 60 privacy complaints over the last, I think, month and a half. And I've not had 60 videos taken down. So they're not always successful. And yeah, it's a question mark. And there's some education that needs to happen among the YouTube reviewers to understand that that Scientology are employing this tactic and weaponizing the privacy complaints procedure against me because I'm saying stuff that they don't like. And I think that YouTube are starting to see that, because the more privacy complaints that come from Scientology, the more of a record there is that this is a targeted campaign of harassment. And I found recently that most of these privacy complaints just get ignored because actually it's breaking the terms of service to maliciously report content, which is what Scientology are doing. So every time they report a video, they only make it worse for themselves. So I really don't think it'll be a problem going forward, but we shall see. And we've got a long way to go yet before the next protest. We don't even know if we're going to be allowed to protest again because of the Public Spaces Protection Order. Michael Andreas, how about independent Scientologists? They follow LRH, so they're probably abusers, right? And that's a really big question. I mean, there was never a point for me where I was an independent Scientologist, but I recognize it can be a useful stepping stone for people leaving Scientology. A lot of people who, for example, are on the RPF or were being abused every day by Dave Miscavige and physically beaten, when they first come out, they are completely done with the treatment and the abuse, but they're not quite done with the beliefs. They still believe that if Scientology is applied correctly, then it will lead to better survival for everyone. So I recognize the independent movement as a good stepping stone for a lot of people to then realize that you can live a happy life outside of Scientology. And then ultimately, some people stay independent Scientologists, some people don't. And that's what I mean about freedom of belief. If you want to be a Scientologist, whether that's independent or in the Church of Scientology, that is your right. It's about abusing people. And I think the independent Scientologists, probably they engage in, as far as I'm aware, far less abuse than the Church of Scientology in terms of hard manual labor. There's no RPF in the independent movement that I'm aware of. There's no like tough censorship and really horrible family disconnection, all those things that are abusive. As far as I can tell, those things don't exist in the independent movement. They might do. I might be wrong. I haven't really looked into it. But the point with Scientology is L. Ron Hubbard wrote that you cannot change it and you have to apply it exactly as it is written. And when the policy is written that you have to treat people in this way, then if you don't apply that, is it really Scientology? And so that's what I mean about the abusive nature of it. Ethics, for example, auditing children, those are things that I consider inherently harmful. And so does the UK government. In the 1971 Foster Report, they looked at these things and they determined that Scientology is inherently harmful and dangerous for someone's mental health. The thing itself, the process of auditing, is a form of hypnosis. It's a form of brainwashing, if you want to call it that. And that is harmful and that is abusing somebody. But whether the person doing it, the auditor, knows that they're abusing somebody is another question. And they might be doing it with the best intentions. So the question of whether Scientology is harmful in and of itself, that's what I mean by that. I think the practice of auditing is abusive. And I don't think you can change it into a way where it doesn't abuse people, because then it wouldn't be auditing anymore. It would be counseling or therapy, which is another thing entirely that already exists. But like I said, that is a whole debate for another day, because what I'm trying to do is get people to, like politicians and journalists, to realize that irrespective of whether you think their beliefs are inherently harmful, they are forcing people to disconnect from families. They are locking people in rooms. They are throwing people in the lake as punishment. They are, putting people on the RPF. They are this, that, and the other, not paying their staff members. And those things are already illegal. And those are behaviors that, irrespective of the belief behind them, shouldn't be happening. So that's where I'm gearing my activism towards. But my personal belief is that Scientology is harmful in and of itself. But that doesn't mean I don't respect your right to practice Scientology independently if you want to. Rachel Harris, out of curiosity, is there any independent Scientologists in the UK that you know of? Yeah, there are a fair amount of independent Scientologists in the UK. I don't know any. Robin Scott, I think, is one. I don't know whether he'd call himself an independent Scientologist because he mixes practices. He likes to use Scientology with yoga and a few other things as well. So he's created his own blend of whatever you want to call it, and that's absolutely fine. And there are other people who are independents in the UK for sure. But like I said, it's not anything I've really ever delved into. I don't feel like I needed that stepping stone in my recovery from getting out of Scientology because it's all very sudden. I was a Scientologist, I drifted away, and then one day it hit me like a ton of bricks that I was still applying Scientology without realizing it. And that's when I realized in that moment that it was still doing harm to me, even though I wasn't applying it. And so for me, I didn't need that stepping stone to go to independent Scientology and then out. I just overnight was suddenly, I'm out now. But other people, they have their own journeys. Some people have different ways out. And some people need that stepping stone. Some people become independents and stay independents, and that's absolutely fine, as long as you are not abusing people, in my opinion. Rachel Harris, oh, is he the weed guy? Yeah. Yeah, Robin, he's a really good guy. And look, we have our differences in our beliefs and so on. But ultimately, he's a nice person to speak to, even if our beliefs differ. See, Belf, if whatever Robin Scott does is a form of Scientology, sign me up. He is the only real OT they ever made. There we go. Paralyzed to paralyzed. All my research indicates it's harmful, in particular, the lengthy and excessive use of the e-meter. Yeah, exactly. And this is another case either for or against independent Scientology, is like Dianetics auditing, book 1 auditing, which doesn't use the e-meter. Is that inherently harmful in and of itself? Well, it's kind of a form of hypnosis. It was developed by L. Ron Hubbard, but it's based on just general psychotherapy, which can be very helpful to people. And I think it's therefore harmful when it's practiced in Scientology because it's being done by people who are not trained professionals, who are not mental health specialists, that don't know what they're doing. They think they do because they've been trained in Dianetics auditing. But actually what they're delivering is a form of hypnotic psychotherapy or hypnotherapy, and therefore it can be dangerous in the wrong hands. So the thing is harmful in its current state, and that's the same whether it's delivered independent of the church or inside the church itself. But the concept of psychotherapy, talking about your past traumas and past experiences, is something that is widely regarded as helpful and beneficial to people's mental health. It's just about the manner in which you do that and doing it in the environment of somebody who knows what they're doing, a trained professional. So yeah, that's what I mean when I say you have a right to believe in Scientology, but if in applying it you're abusing people, then I disagree with it. Michael Andreas, it's easier to leave a cult than it is to have the cult leave you. Yeah, precisely. Paralyzed again. Dianetics is a manual to induce disassociation. Yeah, there's a lot of bad consequences of practicing Scientology, which is why the question later is, well, is Scientology harmful in and of itself? Because if what Scientology does is disassociate people and stop people from really feeling grief when they lose a loved one or whatever it may be, that's harmful to that's damaging to someone's mental health. So can you practice Scientology without having those harmful things? I don't think so, because when you take those things away, what you're left with is no longer Scientology. What you're left with is common life advice that can't be harmful in any way, like talking about your past traumas as a concept, great thing. But when you do it within the context of auditing, it's harmful. So when you take stuff away from it, you're left with something that isn't Scientology and therefore isn't harmful. Valerie Morgan, in my opinion, I think it would be better served to just put this on posters for protesting. Yeah, so there's there's posters for protesting that we have. Obviously, you have to consider that we are under pressure at the moment and we may not be allowed to protest again. We are currently going through the motions of a public spaces protection order. The Saint Hill protest that happened in October could very well have been the last protest outside Scientology's headquarters ever, if this PSPO is granted. So I'm holding back on organizing protest stuff at the moment just because I want to see how that goes. There are obviously other locations we can protest, London, Org, and so on, but their headquarters, where most people are, that is a place you have to be careful around at the moment. And look, we don't want to be harassing anybody. We don't want to be causing a persistent ongoing problem. So yeah, there's definitely value in getting posters printed. I'm not kidding. I'm not disagreeing with you. But when it comes to the Tube ad campaign, it's a different market, because when you're protesting, you are reaching people currently in Scientology who are going to the event or who are going to do something in the local area, maybe some local residents. But doing a campaign on the Tube, especially at Tottenham Court Road, which is one of the busiest tube stations, that reaches a huge proportion of the population who don't already have an idea about Scientology. Now, the thing with following it on from a Scientology ad is those posters have been there for a couple of weeks, and it's something like 200,000 people use Tottenham Court Road tube station every single day. So for 4 weeks, right, 30 days, this ad has been up there, or will have been by the end of it, reaching 200,000 people about Scientology. So I think it would be great to hit back with an ad to those same people, 200,000 people a day, explaining that there's abuse that goes on in Scientology as well, because at the moment they're just getting a one-sided message. So the idea is kind of fighting back, and it's reaching a new audience of people and making them aware that Scientology is an abusive organization, and hopefully inspiring them to help us with our activism or donate to the Aftermath Foundation or whatever it may be. So that's the value in a Tube ad campaign, is it reaches an entirely new audience, whereas protesting reaches a much smaller audience. And yes, we can get press exposure and so on, but you can also get that with the Tube campaign. Anyway, maybe I should do a marketing stream and talk to you guys about marketing stuff. That would be quite fun. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. And completely unrelated to Scientology, I could do a little masterclass or something for you guys. Alrighty, Irina Posner. Also, Apostate Alex, I just wanted to say that I disagree with your tactics and perceived lack of efforts on local administration. Regardless, we are on the same team. That's absolutely fine, and people are welcome to disagree. Perceived lack of effects on local administration, I disagree with that. There has been a lot of effect on local administration. We had a complaints hearing, we had a double-page spread in the Daily Mail. East Grinstead Town Council have changed their operating behaviours, and they've implemented changes to their policies as a result of the activism that I've done. For example, East Grinstead Town Council never had a safeguarding policy before, and after raising that as a concern and saying, what are you doing to safeguard individuals from abuse at Saint Hill, they then implemented a safeguarding policy. So I disagree that there have been a lack of effect on local administration. There absolutely has been an effect. But you are also welcome to disagree with my tactics. People have different opinions. That's absolutely fine. And that's why we have the beauty of YouTube, is freedom of speech, and we don't all have to agree on absolutely everything. But we all are here to try and do the same thing, which is to try and stop the abuse inside Scientology. Craig, have you thought about recording any private investigators that follow you, or approach them and ask them questions about working for Scientology? Absolutely, 100%. I have lots of footage of all sorts of things happening in my life. I don't share everything on my channel. I keep a lot of cards close to my chest. What you see on this channel is a very small percentage of what's actually going on with me as an activist. I only share very limited information because I have to be careful with what I put out there, and I don't want to give it all away. Sometimes it's better to hold stuff and sit on it and collaborate and get together a plan and maybe start doing some actions before then reporting on it. So yeah, absolutely. If I don't publish everything, it's because there's a reason. And look, I might do a live stream every day or every other day or whatever for half an hour or an hour, whatever, that's fine. But you can be sure I'm spending 4, 5, 6, sometimes 12 hours working to be an activist and building relationships with people and speaking to government officials. But I don't always come and report everything. I'm spending a substantial proportion of my time trying to raise awareness and do what I can. But it's not always appropriate to share that publicly. Irena's back. This is okay. We can disagree precisely because we are no longer in a cult and don't have to march up lockstep like Star Wars stormtroopers. Exactly, and that's the beauty of being outside of Scientology, is we're allowed to disagree and find our common ground. I'm a big believer in collaboration. I'm a big believer in working together and finding the common ground, the things that we all agree on, that we all can get behind. That doesn't mean you have to wholeheartedly put your full support behind every single person, but you can work together to support each other in the ways that are appropriate. That's the key in my mind. A.O. Shaw says, stay a few steps ahead. Yeah, precisely. I'm always thinking a couple of steps, if not 10 steps ahead of where we're at. And there is definitely there isn't like a thought out plan, but of like, this is what I'm going to do and where I'm going to go. But I do always plan out my actions, and I'm just making it up as I go along very much. But I am thinking 3, 4, 5, 10 steps ahead of where I'm reporting a lot of the time, if that makes sense. Alrighty, guys. So that's it from me. We've been at it for an hour. What a nice little fun live stream. Don't forget, guys, I haven't shouted out my merch for a while. I do have a merch store. ApostateAlex.com is my website. Let me share this because I haven't shared this in ages. If you guys want to support the channel, obviously you can buy me a coffee. There's PayPal, all that stuff if you want to support financially. And that helps me continue doing the good work that I've been doing over the last 2 years. Thank you to everybody who has donated already in the last 2 years. But another way of supporting is merch. This is my merch store, ApostateAlex.com. And you can see I've got some fun merch like Have a Nice Day, mugs, t-shirts, kindness and compassion, potential trouble source. There's badges, there's stickers, there's posters, caps, all sorts. So if you want to go and get yourselves kitted out with some merch, please consider doing so. But ultimately, coffee money, PayPal, all of that is really helpful. But the best way of supporting my activism, as you guys have already been doing lots of over the last 2 years, is liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, all that sort of stuff. When a video live stream finishes, if you comment underneath below the video, that helps the algorithm to push the video out to more people, and that helps get the message out to more people. And that's what ultimately we want. So thank you, everybody, for supporting me for the last 2 years. I do really appreciate it. Thank you for everybody who has stuck by me. And thank you for everybody who's new to the channel. I can assure you that there is a lot more that's going to be happening, especially over the next year. This channel is growing in terms of the number of subscribers now, which is good. It's kind of been at a level where it's not really grown for a while. That's fine. I would rather have a smaller following that is active and that is willing to support in writing to members of parliament and so on, than having a larger audience that don't do anything. But we are now starting to see some growth. We are starting to see more people engaging on social media. I'm starting to get more and more messages from people inside Scientology saying that they have received the message, that my videos are reaching them. I'm hearing from more and more people who have started to actually do stuff like organize their own protests or write to their local representative. And that's all the sort of work that I want to encourage. And thank you for everybody who has been doing that and everybody who is along with me for this journey. So here's to 2 years. Thank you so much. And as always, I'm only just getting started. This is the very beginning of this journey for me. So here's to 2 years.